Born in the valley, raised in the trees, in western Kentucky, on wobbly knees. Does anybody recognize that? Who? Come on. I don't want to be the only one here. Dan Fogelberg, right? Yeah, he was a favorite when I was in high school. And I thought he had just the stuff. And I was lucky enough to go to one of his concerts at Poplar Creek. And if you know where Poplar Creek was, outside of Chicago, about 20 miles west on Highway 90. It's not Poplar Creek anymore. They've been developed, and it's something else. I was so excited. I got to see Dan Fogelberg in concert. So I was there. I was 28 years old, 1991. I did the math, yeah, 28. So I'm sitting there in Poplar Creek. I've never been there. I don't go to concerts. I've been to maybe 3 in my lifetime. U2, Dan Fogelberg, and there was one other I can't remember. But anyway, I'm standing there and listening to him sing all my favorite songs. It's a simple guitar, maybe a backup musician or two. And that was it. I guess he did his own music, recorded his own stuff, and put on tracks. And I was always amazed that he could do that. He can play all his instruments and sing all the harmony parts and put them together. And anyway, so I'm listening to music, and all of a sudden people start standing up. And do you remember lighters? Yeah, you do. Cigarette lighters. Raised in the trees. I thought, what are these old people doing? I mean, they had to be in their 40s or 50s. Well, that's just for young people to be, with this. And I thought, this is different, They're getting into this Dan Fogelberg stuff. I thought I was the only one, I had all his records, and some of his cassettes, that kind of thing. But there was no pyrotechnics. There was no light show. It was just some guy singing simple songs that had deep meaning. And I could understand his words. I have trouble, and Ariana says, I said, what is he singing? They're saying this. Said, really? I listen to the radio, I can't understand a word they're saying. And she translates for me, And I think, hey, we shouldn't be listening to this song. That's got bad lyrics. You're only 13. So Dan Fogelberg, I could understand his words, deep meaning, simple, And I'm thinking, isn't this what Jesus was doing with his disciples? Okay, I want you guys, 2 by 2. The ants can march. I don't know why that pops in my head, too. Go out, just wear a tunic, sandals, a staff, out you go. They're vulnerable. They're going into places they've probably never been to. Who knows if they're on the wrong side of the tracks or the camel trail or whatever you want to call it. But they're vulnerable. I mean, he doesn't send them out packed up, ready, loaded for bear. They don't have all the power that you could use. No. It's the Dan Fogelberg style, simple and meaningful. You go out 2 by 2. You depend on other people. Oh, well, there's something else, too. It just wasn't them coming in power, and I've got everything I need, and I'm going to tell you the message, and I'm going to move on because that's what I do. No. It's going out with a message and being dependent on others to help you. Maybe give you some food. Maybe give you a place to sleep. Maybe some kind of audience for a while. Maybe there's a conversation that takes place. I mean, it's a two-way street. And I think that's the most effective way to do things. When you go on mission trips, it's not we're coming in power to help you poor, stupid people. It's we want to learn your culture and work side by side, and you need a job done. How can we help? It's a two-way street, and that's the best way to do things. That's the best way to learn, I think. But sometimes, I like entertainment too, and I do like the pyrotechnics and the sound and the lights and things. When we go to the youth gathering, when I'm gone, it's just amazing. The stadium is full of 40,000 people screaming, and there's pyrotechnics, there's flashing, there's all kinds of sound and concerts and bands, and it's just amazing. And it grabs your attention. Something's going to happen here, And then they have bands, they're Christian bands, they sing, and if I can't understand the lyrics because I don't understand, but it's all Christian-based stuff, talking about the message of Jesus. And then they get speakers, keynote speakers to come in, and they're telling their stories, and they're putting skin on their theology, their faith, making it real for all of us. What I found interesting was there were some young people in our group that didn't really want to mess with the whole light show and the sound and the bands. They just wanted to hear the speakers. They wanted to hear the message through the keynote speakers. I thought, hey, aren't kids supposed to be all interested in all this flash whiz-bang stuff? Not all. Not all. I thought, well, that's the message, is the deep, meaningful stuff that we understand or try to understand. We use a lot of things to make it more palatable, I don't want to say, but to draw your attention, to make it fun. You go to a youth specialties, youth seminar, and it's a lot of fun, and sometimes that's the best way I learn, is if I'm laughing, and I can remember sights, I can remember sounds, I can remember the message, a lot of this, because it made me laugh, but it was deep meaning and deep stuff. But it doesn't have to be. There are many different ways of conducting the message, and we find our own personal way of doing stuff. And we work with people. We don't always come in strength. Paul talks about his weaknesses. He's not boasting about, that he's a philosopher and he knows all these languages and, he had this. He doesn't dwell on that stuff. He talks about some of the stuff he doesn't do well. And sometimes that's the most effective too. When you think about it, sometimes when you're in a position of authority, a position of leadership, don't you want people to fill in where you're weak? Don't you want colleagues to balance things out? Sometimes youth ministry is done better by your weaknesses. Let's say you're not very good at publicity. You find someone who does that. Or maybe you just can't relate to the young kids. You find someone to do that. Or planning is not your forte. Someone comes in, a team plans stuff, and you all work together, and that's how ministry happens, effectively. But we're caught on, we better put our best foot forward, and we do that. But realizing that, with Paul, there are weaknesses. And with Jesus saying, it's simple, folks. You don't need a lot of stuff, and that can be scary. I admire, I hide when the Jehovah's Witnesses come. I hide in the other room, basically. And they come to the door and knock, and I hide, But just the guts it takes. Just two people with a Bible knock on the door. You know how vulnerable that is? You know how scary, how much courage that takes? I don't know if I have that. Well, maybe I do in certain circumstances, in different ways. But Jesus is asking his disciples to lay it on the line and expect and hope that people will be helping out. A two-way street ministry with people, because then they can grasp the idea, they can grasp the concept, because they're part of it. It's not one person throwing out ideas and throwing out ministry and then moving on, and sometimes that works too. Well, he found that, I don't want you to be proud. I don't want you to be arrogant. I want you to be humble. I want you to connect with people on a different level. Cigarette lighters, yeah, I did that. Let's see. Take nothing with you. Go out into the world. Be who you are. The gifts that God has given you. Figure out what that is. The question I have is, from the two readings, the three readings, or four readings that we've had today, how do we best learn from these? And how do we best communicate these? How do we best work with our community on these? What have we gained? What knowledge have we learned? So that we can go out and be disciples as they were, in our own way, using our own gifts, what God has given us. Amen.